3 minutes. This is it. The beginning.
Most people think Fight Club is about two men beating each other in basements. They are wrong. Fight Club is actually a psychological trap, a movie that convinces you to admire a dangerous man, then slowly reveals that the danger was inside your own mind the whole time. In this video, we are breaking down Fight Club through psychology. How the film manipulates viewers, mirrors addiction, and predicts the rise of toxic self-improvement culture. Tyler Durden is not just a character, he is an addiction, a cult leader, and possibly the part of you that secretly wants the world to burn. And the disturbing part? The movie doesn't just show Tyler, it turns the audience into him. At first glance, Tyler Durden looks like the hero of the story. He is confident, fearless, charismatic. He says everything the narrator is too afraid to say. He punches everything the narrator is too afraid to punch. He lives the kind of rebellious life that most people secretly fantasize about when they are stuck in boring jobs, buying furniture they don't need, and living the same routine every day. And this is where Fight Club becomes psychologically brilliant, because the movie doesn't just introduce Tyler Durden, it makes you admire him. Think about how Tyler first appears. He is calm, mysterious, and completely in control. He talks about rejecting consumerism, escaping the corporate trap, and breaking free from a society that turns people into obedient workers. These ideas feel powerful, almost revolutionary. For a moment, the audience feels the same thrill that the narrator feels. Tyler seems like the answer to everything that feels empty in modern life. But here is the psychological trick the movie is playing. The film slowly turns Tyler into a fantasy figure that the audience starts rooting for. When Fight Club begins, it looks like harmless rebellion. Just men fighting in basements, releasing frustration, finding meaning through pain. It feels raw, honest, even liberating. The movie frames these moments almost like a spiritual awakening for the narrator. But then something strange happens. Fight Club stops being about fighting. It becomes Project Mayhem. Suddenly, there are rules, uniforms, secret meetings, and followers who obey Tyler without question. The rebellious philosophy slowly transforms into something much darker, a cult. And this is the moment the movie quietly turns the mirror toward the audience. Because many viewers don't notice when the shift happens. They are still cheering for Tyler. Psychologically, this reflects something Carl Jung called the shadow self. The shadow is the hidden part of our personality that contains our suppressed anger, aggression, and destructive impulses. Society forces people to hide these instincts, but they never really disappear. They simply wait for a moment when they can be expressed. Tyler Durden represents that shadow. He says the things people secretly think but would never admit. He acts on impulses that most people bury deep inside themselves. And because those impulses feel powerful and freeing, the audience is drawn to him before they realize what he actually represents. By the time the narrator understands that Tyler is destroying his life, the audience has already been seduced by him. Which raises a disturbing question. What if Fight Club was never just about the narrator losing control of his mind? What if the real experiment was watching how easily the audience could fall in love with Tyler Durden too? Now look at Fight Club from a completely different psychological lens. What if the entire movie is actually a story about addiction? Not alcohol, not drugs, addiction to feeling alive. At the beginning of the film, the narrator is emotionally numb. His life is a loop of insomnia, office work, and shopping for furniture that promises happiness but delivers nothing. His apartment is filled with perfect catalog items, yet he feels completely empty inside. This is the psychological starting point of many addictions, a quiet, persistent void. Then something strange happens. He discovers Fight Club, and suddenly he can sleep again. That detail is incredibly important. After the first few fights, the narrator finally rests peacefully for the first time in months. His mind becomes calm. His life suddenly feels meaningful. The fights are painful, brutal, and irrational, but they provide something powerful that his normal life never could. Dopamine. Pain, adrenaline, danger, and rebellion create a rush that the narrator becomes dependent on. Just like a drug, the fights temporarily solve his emotional emptiness. For the first time, he feels present. He feels real. But addiction always follows a predictable psychological pattern. First comes relief, then comes escalation. Fight Club starts small. Just a few men in a basement hitting each other to feel something. But soon the narrator needs more of the experience to maintain that same emotional high. The clubs spread across the city. More people join. The violence becomes more intense. And this is where Tyler Durden becomes the embodiment of addiction itself. Tyler is the voice that constantly pushes for the next level. He encourages bigger risks, bigger chaos, bigger rebellion. The narrator believes Tyler is helping him break free from society's expectations. But in reality, Tyler is simply feeding the addiction. Soon the narrator is no longer controlling the chaos. The chaos is controlling him. Fight Club evolves into Project Mayhem, and suddenly the thrill of rebellion turns into blind obedience and destruction. Members shave their heads, give up their identities, and follow orders without question. What started as a way to escape numbness has transformed into something completely consuming. And that is exactly how addiction works. The thing that once gave relief eventually becomes the thing that takes control of your life. By the time the narrator realizes that Tyler is destroying everything around him, the system has already grown far beyond his control. Just like someone trapped in addiction, he can see the damage but struggles to stop the cycle, which raises a strange possibility. Maybe Tyler Durden was never just a split personality. Maybe he was the narrator's addiction, given a face, a voice, and a philosophy that made the destruction feel meaningful. Now let's look at Tyler Durden from another unsettling perspective. What if Tyler Durden is not a rebel, but a self-help guru? At first, that sounds ridiculous. Tyler lives in a collapsing house, makes soap out of stolen fat, and starts underground fight clubs. That does not look like a motivational seminar. But listen carefully to what he actually says. You are not your job. You are not how much money you have in the bank. The things you own end up owning you. These lines sound strangely familiar today. They sound like the kind of quotes that appear on productivity podcasts, motivational reels, and self-improvement pages all over the internet. And that is where Fight Club becomes frighteningly ahead of its time, because Tyler uses the exact psychological tools that many charismatic self-help figures use. First, he identifies a problem. Modern men feel empty. They feel powerless. They feel trapped in systems they did not design. Tyler speaks directly to that frustration. He tells them their jobs are meaningless, their possessions are chains, their lives are fake, and suddenly, people feel understood. This is the first step of charismatic influence, making followers believe someone truly sees their pain. Then Tyler offers a solution. Destroy the system, reject society's rules, become stronger through pain, break free from the artificial world of consumerism. The message feels empowering at first. It feels like liberation. The narrator begins to believe he is becoming a stronger, more authentic version of himself. But slowly, the philosophy begins to change. Fight Club stops being about personal freedom. It becomes about obedience. Members shave their heads. They lose their names. They repeat Tyler's words like scripture. They carry out missions without asking questions. What started as self-discovery quietly transforms into cult behavior. And that transformation happens so gradually that many people inside the movement never notice it. Psychologically, this is how cult dynamics often work. A charismatic leader begins by offering empowerment and purpose. Followers feel stronger and more confident at first. But over time, the leader becomes the source of identity itself. Tyler Durden becomes exactly that. He is no longer just a friend or a mentor. He becomes an ideology. The narrator eventually realizes something terrifying. The philosophy that promised freedom has actually created a system where no one thinks independently anymore. Which makes Fight Club feel strangely relevant today. Because if Tyler Durden existed in the age of the internet, he might not be running fight clubs in basements. He might be running a podcast. There is another way to look at Fight Club that makes the movie even more disturbing. What if Tyler Durden was never the problem? What if the real problem was the life the narrator was living before Tyler appeared? At the beginning of the film, the narrator is not a violent man. He is not rebellious. He is not dangerous. In fact, he is the perfect citizen of modern consumer society. He works a stable corporate job. He buys furniture from catalogs. He carefully designs his apartment based on what products promise happiness. And yet he cannot sleep. This is the first psychological clue the movie gives us. The narrator's insomnia is not just a medical issue. It is a symptom of something deeper. His mind is rejecting the life he is living. Everything about his routine is artificial. His job has no meaning. His purchases are not expressions of identity, but attempts to manufacture it. Even his apartment looks less like a home and more like a showroom. Psychologically, this creates what many researchers call existential emptiness. When people feel that their life lacks purpose or authenticity, the mind begins searching for something that feels real. Pain, strangely enough, can provide that feeling. This is why the first fight between the narrator and Tyler feels so powerful. In that moment, for the first time in the film, the narrator is fully present. The physical pain, the adrenaline, the chaos of the moment forces him to experience reality directly instead of living through corporate routines and consumer habits. And suddenly, he can sleep again. That detail reveals something crucial about the narrator's psychology. The fights are not just acts of rebellion. They are a desperate attempt to feel something authentic in a life that has become emotionally numb. Tyler Durden represents the extreme version of that desire. He rejects everything that the narrator once believed defined success. No stable job, no possessions, no comfort, no rules. Tyler lives entirely outside the structure of modern society. But the movie slowly reveals the danger of swinging too far in the opposite direction. The narrator's original life was empty because it was built entirely on consumer identity. Tyler's world is dangerous because it rejects structure altogether. One side is emotional numbness, the other is destructive chaos, and the narrator is trapped between them. In the end, Fight Club suggests that both extremes are psychological traps. A life built only around possessions can feel meaningless, but a life built only around destruction can consume you completely, which leaves one unsettling question. If Tyler Durden is the mind's reaction to an empty life, how many other people might be carrying their own version of Tyler quietly inside their heads? So what is Fight Club really trying to tell us? On the surface, it looks like a movie about underground fights and anarchist rebellion. But when you peel back the layers, the film becomes something far more unsettling. Curious, it becomes a psychological mirror. Tyler Durden is not just a character. He is a reaction to numbness, to consumer culture, to emotional repression, to the quiet frustration people carry when their lives feel scripted and meaningless. That is why the film is still discussed decades later, because the questions it raises have never really disappeared. How much of our identity is built by society? How much anger do people quietly suppress just to function in everyday life? And what happens when that suppressed part of the mind finally finds a voice? Fight Club suggests that everyone has a shadow self, a version of themselves capable of destruction, rebellion, and chaos. Most people keep it buried, but under the right conditions, that side can emerge and take control before we even realize what is happening. And maybe that's the real reason Fight Club still messes with our heads years later. If this breakdown made you see the film differently, let me know in the comments. Did you admire Tyler Durden, or did the movie trick you into it? And if you enjoy psychological deep dives into movies like this, make sure to subscribe, because every day we break down the hidden psychology behind the stories we thought we already understood.